From the trees over your head to the lawn you hate to mow and everything green in between. Garden Mama's here to help you keep on growing. Still the empress of everything green. Here's your horticulture maven, Garden Mama Nellie Neal, on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Everything is very green. You know, it is the middle of August, and if it's not raining where you are, you're probably watering something, because we do try to keep things pretty green at this time of the year. If you are joining me this morning on the Garden Mama Show at supertalk.tv, you'll see that I am at LaFleur's Bluff in very, very green territory. They're just delightful. I just love this photograph by my friend Robert. He's better than he thinks he is. That's good. I'm here this morning with all of you. My name's Nellie Neal. I'm known as the Garden Mama, and that's because gardening's what it's all about for me. Taking your texts, taking your phone calls, and I know occasionally there'll even be some other form of a communication which I will try to get to. I didn't get to one that came in the email last week during the show and had a very disappointed person on my hands. But trust me, at this point in the morning, during the live show, you're best to get in touch with me through text, because that's what's right here in front of me on the screen first up. All right? All right. Now, let me ask you something. When things change, do they change, or do you just try to change them? Well, I'm here with the preacher today, and guess what? Fighting Okra's in the house. I have to say good morning to Jacob. Thank you so much for being there. I hope all is well there in the studio, sir. He will learn to weigh in and speak along the way. But if you all don't know this already, the Fightin' Okra t-shirt was practically bought off of my back several times in my life. And each one that I have given to anybody has had that same reaction. So I know it's not everybody's favorite. I love it. Being that this is the Garden Mama Show, we have to have a little bit of fight in us, and sometimes that goes to the okra. Yesterday was World Lizard Day, and I know we don't usually celebrate what's already happened, but I've had this vision in my mind that somewhere back there, I had heard once that there was a warm-blooded lizard, and so I went down the rabbit hole in the search-arounds to see what I could find out. And in fact, there are some that are partially warm-blooded, but they are not like you or me. Okay, so they are very much mostly a cold-blooded species, and there are more than 7,000 species of lizards in this world. Yes, the gecko. Yes, the Komodo dragons. I mean, these all these wonderful creatures. But I have to say that having been around more iguanas than I could imagine, I'm thinking that I'm kind of not a lizard person. But we can talk about that. I do like the idea that most lizards have a third eye. And since we all have read about that, heard about that, we try to understand what that's all about. In the case of the lizards, it's pretty much another organ to detect what's around them, but not in the vision sense that you or I would have, or even that they have. But it's another way through smell and taste of the air to know if maybe they're under threat, or maybe if lunch is around the corner. The different things that you need to know if you are a lizard. There are some that make chirping sounds. For example, our friends the geckos do that. I don't know if you've ever been anywhere where there were enough of them for it to sound really loud, but it can be very loud at times. They click, and they're one of the very few lizards that have vocal cords. So yesterday was World Lizard Day, and I hope that if you celebrate, that you had a very wonderful time. No question about what I'm doing right now in the garden, of course, besides turning on the water, is making sure that I'm getting ready to plant lettuce. We've talked about this. We've talked about planting a bunch of stuff this month. It's really, really hot. Someone told me yesterday that in central Mississippi, today will be the last day that it's expected to actually be 100. It'll come down just a couple of degrees. That's still too hot to get out and do very much gardening. However, you can certainly get some seed starting soil, set up a light or a bright window in your house, and get some of these things going, particularly in my case, the lettuce, but you may also want to start some Swiss chard. You may want to start some other kinds of greens that are there to be enjoyed. And frankly, you got to get them ready to go into the garden, especially because we're having such a hot summer and fall. It's going to be a bigger task to get the seeds to come up in some cases. If you have planted, for instance, turnip greens on the 1st of September your whole life, you probably won't have any trouble. But there are a lot of other folks that are wanting to do that and that may not have your expertise. You got some tips? Send them to us. Call in. We'd be happy to help people do this. This is a big day of celebrating turning the corner. I don't know if you all get up early enough. I certainly have noticed that the sunrise is a little bit later on in the morning. I don't know about this. Do you guys know? Are we keeping daylight savings time? Is that going to be a permanent deal? I don't know. Somebody will have to tell us about that. A couple of plants that you want to know about at this time of year that are just absolutely beautiful. Candlestick plants. That, of course, is Senna alata or Cassia alata, depending on where you buy it. It's got rounded leaves. Big plants by this time. We plant them anywhere outside of the tropics. They really do have to grow their whole height in the summertime. So they're kind of like angel trumpets in that way. They may or may not stay there. Certainly plant new seeds if you're anywhere, say, north of Hattiesburg. But you can also keep the plants going in a protected area. However, when they really show off is August, September, and sometimes even into October, just depending on the year and how things are going. But it's a beautiful plant. Those tall, stacked up yellow candelabra flowers are dramatic. I'm sure that you've heard the joke about the chase trees. You know, when those blue flowers pop up, they'll stop traffic. Well, these will too. So if you've not seen candlestick trees, look for them. They're out there. They're in bloom now, and they're really, really beautiful. A good companion for them in the late summer show is copper plant or acalpha. Those are ones that you can think of them as sort of a woody coleus. They're not going to be hardy, but they are going to grow really fast, and in this case they're going to have slick leaves where coleus has not so slick leaves, and they're also going to make a bushy bush. It's going to be like 3 feet tall at least, and that big around in some cases, depending on what you fertilize it with, of course. Give yourself that opportunity to have some fun with some different plants. Look for them now and get them ready to put in your garden next spring. Speaking of coming up, my goodness, there's so many things. August 8th at 18th, I'm sorry, this coming Tuesday at 6 p.m. I hope you will join us. The Flower Growers of Mississippi will be having another class. We're planning now for year-round blooms. We're going to be helping you with scheduling. We're going to be helping you with variety choices. We're going to be helping you with the options for different things to grow so that you've always got something in the way of cut flowers, either for yourself, your church, your market. Maybe you've got 5 acres and you're ready to turn it into a cut flower farm. Donna Yowell and I are here to help you. We're ready to do that, and we will be once again having a class on Tuesday night. Get in touch with her, dyowell@aol.com, or you can send a note to me. Garden Mama is garden and then MAMA. That's why my email is MAMA, Mama on air @yahoo.com. So you can always get information from me about that. I have been fascinated lately by all the discussions of fire, all of the beginnings of people really wanting to get in and talk about what to burn, what not to burn. It comes in the summer because there are people who still in some places it's still legal, I should say, and in those places there are some people who still burn off, say, a Bermuda lawn in the summertime. But many times we're looking at a controlled burn to make sure that the plants that are preferred can thrive there. And we're seeing that, we certainly have seen that Crosby Arboretum has a wonderful program. There are others that are important. If you're into this, you need to pay attention to them because they know the stuff. They're doing the research, and they're also giving themselves the opportunity to report on it to all of us. But right now, University of California, Davis is working on the giant sequoias. Recent wildfires have been so much more dangerous for them. Well, they're not the easiest tree to catch on fire. but they're working on ways now to try and keep this by burning the stuff around it, just like we talk about doing here. So if the brush around it doesn't catch on fire, the trees are it's difficult for them to catch on fire. So they're working on that out there. Let's see. There are, this is an interesting question. Larry in Flowood, you know Larry. Larry had the beautiful muley grass last week. He's always got cool things to look at. But this is an interesting problem. I have a crepe myrtle, probably a Natchez, since it had white flowers. And it does look like it's at least tall enough to be a Natchez, I'll tell you. It's big. It did not bloom. It put on seed pods. Well, it had to at least try to bloom a little bit, and it just may be that the flowers didn't ever quite get finished. They were either triggered by a rainstorm or by a real dry spell or something to just go ahead and make seeds. But it's dropping the leaves, which is not unusual once it has bloomed. It's 25 years old, and it's not blooming. Is not blooming a sign of a problem with the tree? Well, it can be. Unless, of course, somebody next door to you, which it doesn't look like, has just built a huge building that has produced more shade than the tree ever had in its life. That's a possibility. But in this case, it looks to me more like the tree is just aging. The reason I say that, you've got, I don't know how many main trunks you have at the base, but up in the canopy, which this is a picture of, there's just dozens and dozens of narrow branches, and that does make it harder for the tree to put on a full tilt bloom show. I'm not going to suggest that you try to prune this thing in a very heavy way, but if you haven't fertilized it in a few years or at all, you certainly are going to want to do that. I wouldn't do it now because you obviously got everything's going along well. Unless you've got spotted leaves or some kind of mite infestation or something obvious in those leaves as they're falling, I don't think this is anything except a reaction on the tree's part to a very difficult year. And I would start next year with some fertilizer for it. I would also, if you have any other branches and things, new branches coming up from the ground level, I would get rid of those next winter too. You don't need any more competition for this particular plant. It does look like it's lost some of its leaves, but mostly what I'm seeing is a whole lot of narrow trunks, narrow stems, narrow branches, and that is a lot of competition. So I don't think it's a sign the tree is in trouble, but I would like to see you give it some fertilizer next year. Hello, Walt. Walt is in New Albany. By the way, friend of the program. Lots of friends of the program up there. Tim and Janet, happy anniversary. Why do I get these spots on my bell peppers? It is a browning that happens on the flesh of fruit sometimes. It's generally speaking a fungus problem, and particularly because this one looks like it's kind of dry, I tend to think that it might be. It doesn't always happen in the sun, but it is worse if the peppers are exposed to the sunlight and to great heat. It can start as just a small little, maybe an insect landed on it and pricked it a little bit. It can start as water that sits on it for a while, which this particular fruit, obviously that didn't happen. But there's different things that can get it started. Now, I can also tell you that you've got an overripe pepper there on the bottom unless you're trying to get it to turn red. It needs to go ahead and be picked. And I think that if you will pick these and just be a little bit more attentive to watering, then and also, frankly, I've seen people with bell peppers have to put up a shade cloth at the end of the summer because it just got too hot on those plants. So you may decide to do that. I wouldn't think so. I would think if you take these fruit off and just pay a little bit more attention to the watering, don't let the fruit stay on too long. I think the next round of the bell peppers will be great. You probably get 2 or 3 more flushes of peppers even in New Albany before the season is ended. The plant looks like it's in very good shape. Why do I get these spots on? That is the thing. I was looking yesterday. I have been talking about for a couple of months now the cherry tomato that I cut back to nothing. It had like 4 leaves, 3 stems and 4 leaves. And now it's taller than me in the container and just loaded up with flowers. It hasn't said anything yet because it's so hot at night, even for this cherry tomato. But I have been trying to keep the plant going, and I had a serious yellowing problem last week. Well, I realized I hadn't put any fertilizer in it since all this growth, and most of the yellow was toward the bottom of the plant, which tells you that it is transferring the nitrogen in those leaves to the top part of the plant so the plant can keep growing. And sort of like that crepe myrtle, I had a few too many thin stems at the very top. So I took out a few of those, gave it a little fertilizer, and today it looks a whole lot better than it did, I'm happy to say. I think I'm going to be able to wait it out. Something else someone had written me about this week, have I ever grown kohlrabi? Yes, I have. And I really love kohlrabi. It is another thing that if you like to grow cabbages and broccoli and, those later fall Brussels sprouts, those things, then kohlrabi fits right into that rhythm. And they are not that hard to get to sprout. They do tend to take up a little bit more room than you think they do because they're going to make an enlarged bulb above ground. So it's like a turnip, so to speak, except it's above ground instead of below. So that's one of the things that you might want to talk to me about. Going to talk about some hungry pests. Going to talk about a few other people in the garden. This is Lucinda. I think we better get right. We'll be right back. I know, you've been tempted, so have I. But in Central America, my friends, I have never heard of this. That's why I'm going to tell you about it. To figure out how big an ant colony is, we see the mounds of our fire ants, but leafcutter ants take the leaves that they cut and turn them into their nests, and frankly, it's astounding. I've watched a couple of videos about it over time, but it's an amazing process. Now, here's the deal. What they did was, after they got one or two excavated, they filled it with plaster, the whole thing, the chambers, the fungus gardens, because that's where they grow their food, and the stylos and everything else, waste storage, all this other stuff. This can be the size of a tennis court. You know how little bitty a leafcutter ant is? You know how many it takes to do that? 6 million. I so don't want to find 6 million ants. Over the years, people have said, why do you say that there are a few things that you just will go after no matter what's happening with it? And in my case, it's ants, fire ants in our world, but probably the leaf cutters would get me if I was in South America. Bobby from Monticello this morning. Beautiful lemon tree. It has gone absolutely crazy. It's got gorgeous leaves on it, and it looks like it's in a really nice, bright, sunny spot. That's sweet. Yes, we will talk about some lettuces. Thank you very much. You have piqued my interest. Yes, you should. I think a combination of purchased plants that you get a little bit later on helps, but if you want to start some seed this month of your own, it's also a real good idea to do that. I have just received, as I ordered them maybe 4 or 5 days ago, some seeds from my friend Renee's garden. She's Renee's Garden Seeds in California. She tests specifically for a lot of things, but specifically for container varieties. So I have a container romaine and another container soft leaf butter crunch kind of lettuce that she recommended. So there's all kinds of varieties that do well here for us. The only ones that I'm not going to plant myself are going to be the hardhead, the icebergs, and the Great Lake. Great Lakes is a good one if you want to grow that. But it's not my favorite. This morning, I see the shots are coming up at SuperTalk.tv. I've decided that Garden Mama can have any kind of celebration, any kind of day, and y'all will be kind enough to come along with me. Last week was the International Day of the Cat, and I missed it. So my cats are all over the SuperTalk.tv today, and they're looking pretty good, I have to say. So, in terms of which varieties to get, I would get Butter Crunch. I would get a romaine, at least one or two to try different of those sorts. And I really like, if you like red lettuce, I really like red sales. It grows well for us, and it's a delicious lettuce. Let's see, Garden Mama, this is the first. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'll take care of that off the air. Jeff and Brenda, this is such a good question. Y'all are determined to get me into the history book today. Thank you. What are your thoughts on the Ruth Stout method of gardening? Ruth Stout was the original. I'm pretty sure she was like 90 years old when she died. She died in the 80s, I believe. But she was just famous. I've gotten to be known for saying things like, if you can put 30 minutes a day into your garden and it's, not bigger than your house, you're probably going to do fine. Her attitude was, you shouldn't work that hard. That gardening was never supposed to be really that hard to do. So it was the first person who had multi-use compost kind of attitude, that we're going to suppress the weeds, but we're also going to use all the kitchen cuttings and do that kind of sheet composting where you put the kitchen trimmings in with the leaves, in with the other stuff, and you put it directly onto your beds and whatnot. Her attitudes are real good. Her writing, she's a brilliant writer. She's so much fun to read because she tells you what she's been doing. It's like Doc and Katie Abramson. If you've read any of their stuff, they were organic before it was cool, but their writing is just so invigorating. Ruth Stout's writing is that way too, and I'm happy to tell you that we have all adopted some of that mulch technique. But she's not from the South, and so what we found in the South was, if you put out direct kitchen choppings into your leaves that you're then mulching with, it doesn't turn into as good a process as if you would have just left it to compost on its own, those two things together, leaves and kitchen trimmings. Let that go about 6 weeks, and then you've got a better mulch product. But yes, her attitude of, I think she grew vegetables in hay bales too, different sorts of containers and things. But she's real smart, real good ideas, and really won't direct you wrong, as long as you remember that she's not in the Deep South. One of the things that we're also showing off today at SuperTalk.tv is different kinds of containers for this vegetable project that I keep trying to get everybody into. I want the container to be 6 inches deep, because I want you to have that much soil. Yes, I know you can grow lettuce in 4 inches, but I want you to make a deeper soil so that it has a little bit more resilience in it and the roots can be bigger and deeper. Particularly if you're going to cut leaves and harvest them individually, you're going to need that root zone to keep supplying what the plant needs. It's real important. And I also put up a shot from, thank you very much, Peaches. Mark sent some photos, of course, today, a flat of sweet banana peppers. Now, why would I tell you to get a sweet banana pepper in August? Because it's going to make in zone 8, not in zone 7 probably. It'll get a little too chilly by Thanksgiving. But you'll have banana peppers straight into the fall. And frankly, I think they taste better as the weather is cooling down just a little bit. I don't make poppers. I don't make, stuff them with cheese and stuff like that. But I'm thinking about it. All the Hatch chilies are out now. If you have not had a chance to get into those, it's a delicious flavor. It is like good old Vidalia onions from Vidalia, Georgia. No matter where you grow them, they're still better if they come from Georgia. Hatch peppers from New Mexico are really the same way. It's like sweet potatoes from Mississippi. We outgrow everybody. There's no question about that. It's just really important. So I'm preparing the soil, and I'm starting the seedlings rather, but I'm starting the seedlings indoors out of the heat, and then making sure that soil will drain well, and at the same time has plenty of nutrient and whatnot in it, so that then as soon as the lettuce is maybe, 2 sets of leaves, I'll be able to transplant it. I also got some Tabasco pepper plants the other day, in the same way that Mark had the banana plants up there. We're looking at a bunch of Mark's stuff right now at SuperTalk.tv too. His little truck and his little trailer. You'd be surprised how much stuff you use. There's a whole world of plant material in there, and it's a really good Southern Charm garden design is somebody you need to know about. You can find him online at Facebook, and of course here from time to time. He'll be. I think he's going to call in today, but I don't know. We'll see. He might be too busy. We will have to see. Speaking of lemon trees, this is an important one for us to look at in the summertime. If you've got it outdoors and you're going to bring it indoors because it's in a container, then this is the time to really make sure that you don't need to do any kind of cleanup. You may have weeds in it. You may have maybe a bug or two here and there. Clean that up and give yourself the opportunity to bring in a plant that's nice and healthy and happy. This is also the time for any kind of big plant particularly, but a lot of times we do it for all of the ones we're going to bring indoors. Do that cleaning out. Make sure that if you mulch around in your containers, which is particularly important in the big containers, that it's just a little bit of it, not too much, maybe an inch at the most, say around a lemon tree, less than that around something else. And get all those things ready so that when it begins to get time, which it's not yet. I mean, you can always bring plants indoors, but we will want to bring them indoors a little bit later on. And one of the things that is important, of course, is to remember that what you're trying to do, if you have tropical foliage plants that you put out on the porch all summer, you want to bring those things indoors at maybe 2 weeks before you're going to have to turn on the heaters. That's so that they can get used to the reduced light and also to the reduced humidity before you also start blowing hot air on them. So it's important to give your plants a chance to adapt. I have a couple of things that got sunburned this summer, and I've cut them back, so now they've started growing, but now it's going to be, well, let's just say there's some plants better in the back row than in the front. So that's how that's going to turn out, I think. That's really a fun thing. I so appreciate you. Thank you very, very much. That's very kind of you. We have lots and lots to say about gardening, lots and lots to say about cut flower growing, and lots to say about upcoming events, because this fall is turning into something. I'll tell you what. But I also wanted you to know, and I did not realize that this was a thing, but today is National Leatherwork Day. Now, what in the world does that mean? Well, the term tooling leather is something that I've known all my life, but not a lot of people necessarily do. And the idea of tooled leather as opposed to first you tan it and then you tool it and then you turn it into something. It's the 3 T's that I was taught in that kind of class. I have a beautiful wallet, for example, that was made for me from someone who did all of that. And I've had an opportunity to really appreciate over time how difficult it is to make a belt. I've known people that worked in leather, and it's sort of like the next piece. You know, for example, if you harvest deer, you probably, maybe not right away, but pretty soon you start realizing that there's a lot you're not going to eat. Let's see what we can do. And leather work is just magnificent on deerskin once it's been tanned and taken care of. The sorts of things that one can create are just limitless. It's also one of those things that is, I think of the bird carvers. You know, there are groups of people who love to do something, and there are groups of people who love what those people do. So they join the group, and sure enough, in a couple of months, you find yourself not just admiring, but also participating. And I think those are the kinds of things that we're all looking to do. I tell you all the time, gardening is such a lonely profession in its way. We be in our own yards with our own plants and our own pots, and the next thing you know, you want to talk to somebody about it. Well, we have this show. We have other things to do, of course, to get together, but it's real important that you know some other gardeners. I noticed this week that the Mississippi Master Gardeners had their first meeting of the year, and I think that's a real important way to go, real big deal. Garden clubs are always a fun, really just such great resources and such fun understanding of what's going on with people. So just find yourself some friends, and we appreciate you being these friends with us. Ah, muscadines. That's beautiful. Jeff and Brenda are busy. Oh, my goodness, that looks great. I don't know. People sometimes say that they don't like muscadines. I think that's because they've not had the ones that we grow in Mississippi, the really good ones, not only good varieties, but also that have been handled well. And these just absolutely look perfect. That's great. Thank you for showing that to us today. One of the other things, if you're going to grow lettuce, you need a container that's 6 inches deep. You need a soil that drains well, and I'm more than happy to provide you with my recipe. But if you want to go and get, there's a bunch of things at the garden centers now in the big box stores that say container soil. Okay, well, take that, fill a 6-inch pot. You don't have to fill your whole planter with it because we're just going to test this. But fill a 6-inch pot and water it. And then water it again and see how long it takes for the water to get through it. That'll tell you something about how this planter is going to work in a rainstorm, but also how long it's going to be able to sustain the water in it. You know, when we water, the right way to water a container, particularly a big one, but it works for small pots too, the reason for the head space that's between the soil and the top of the pot is so that when you water, you can fill that with water, okay? You water and the soil goes straight out the bottom before you can even do that. You got to think about the fact that unless it's an orchid or something growing in bark, it probably needs to be repotted at that point because you've got a little bit faster drainage than the plant can absorb any nutrition from. So what we're trying to do, for example, I have great big peace lilies, you know. That's Doris. Doris and young Doris, they're both out there. And I can water and fill that space up. And I mean, it's about halfway drained out pretty quickly, but then when I fill it again up to the line of the top of the soil, from there up to the actual top of the pot, then it percolates through slowly, and you know you've got something that's going to work for you. If the water that in that bag that you've just purchased has any tendency to hold water too long or to puddle on top of the soil or any of the other things that you know lettuce isn't going to like, get a bag of soil conditioner, ground up bark, or something like that, and give yourself the opportunity to take care of it. Okay? All right, give it a little bit looser life, and you'll have a better, longer lettuce crop. So much to talk about. We got pictures to look at. We got things to do. Guess what? We'll be right back.
Don't you know it's a pity the days can't be like the nights in the summer, in the city, in the summer, in the city. Cool town, meeting in the city, dressed so fine and looking so pretty.
You know, wherever it is that you're going, I hope that you will take SuperTalk with you. And if you just can't take it, you got to have more mama. You can always go to YouTube and grab past shows there, and lots of them. more of me than you might want. But thankfully, you've been kind enough to want me in your ear for quite some time. I wanted to just give you a little bit of an update. Yes. The Bobby sent in the most beautiful, can't say this because my cat's sitting over here, but this is a beautiful tuxedo. Every bit as gorgeous as my Agatha. I didn't say that. Jealous cats. Mary says, if I cut the dead blooms from the Vitex, will it rebloom? Oftentimes it will. It just depends on the particular tree and the timing and all that sort of stuff. But it's like crepe myrtle or any other sort of tree that is in bloom. When you go to cut it back. Cut it to the bottom of the flower, plus the two little leaves that are underneath it. See, the way this thing works is the stem grows, and then as it is triggered to put on a flower bud, it makes smaller leaves, not only to support that flower stalk, in this case, the flower cluster, but it also does that so that it has the energy to get into the flowers. But it also is a cue to you that that's where it can bloom again, is right below that pair of smaller leaves underneath the flower cluster. I think that makes sense. I hope it does. Yes, the question about the container soil recipe, I'm going to tell you how I do this. If I'm making my own soil for a container, and you know, obviously you can adapt stuff. You can add a little more of this or a little less of that if you need something to work differently. But in most cases, and you know, I love all the products from Phillips Bark Processing in Mississippi. They're my go-tos. It's Gardenese. They have really great products. Look on the back of the bag, read their name, and if it's there, I'm for it. Now, dump all of that bag. You got a bag of potting soil, okay? And that you take that bag, dump it into the wheelbarrow or the box or whatever you mix soil in. Then you're going to take that bag and use it to measure a half a bag of ground bark or some fairly composted leaf mold, not all the way to compost, but leaf mold from your garden. And then another half a bag of actual compost. You can buy that, or you may be one who makes it. Then at that point, you're going to get a little bit less. You're going to go to about a quarter bag of some kind of manure. I like chicken manure. You might like one of the black cows or another one of those products. Some people really are fond of mushroom compost, and so if they do that, then sometimes you put in a little extra of that and not any manure. But anyway, you're going to stir it up. You'll be able to tell how it feels. Then at that point, you're going to have to add something to help with the drainage. And also, because you've got so many acid products in here, you need something that's going to help out to keep it a neutral pH. So we're going to put in some dolomite lime, and we're also going to put in a little bit of sand or perlite or some such thing. You might, if you have clay pots that all break and you grind that into small pieces, that's called turface. You can use turface for this project too. But in that same amount of material, you'll be using about a third of a bag, a half of, no, not that much, a third or a quarter of a bag of the sand or some other sharpening material, something like perlite works well for this. And then a cup of garden lime, not hydrated lime, and I prefer dolomite. Then you mix it all together, and I'm going to tell you, when you mix it all together, you're going to want to do a drainage water test too, because you don't know that you've mixed up something that's going to work perfectly like you want it to. What you need is for that water to drain through the container. You fill that 6-inch container, the water needs to drain through it, and then the rest of it needs to just filter slowly when you refill the top of the pot, okay? That's going to be able to keep your lettuce hydrated, and it's also going to be able to keep the bottom of the container as able to grow roots as the top. Looking at some really pretty pictures today, but I've also got a note to myself to remember to tell you that if you are going to winterize your lawn, now's the time to think about that. What in the world does that mean? Well, winterizing is what's the popular term given to fertilizing your lawn for its fall growth or for its winter sustenance. It's also called fall feeding. Well, it's not fall yet, so why would I be doing this? So that your yard, your lawn can take in the material and put it to use. What it's going to do is primarily that the function of this stuff is to feed the roots. So if you've had a lawn that's looked spotty and you don't know why, if you've had a lawn that otherwise is maybe kind of old and never been fertilized, this might be a good thing to do. But the products are going to be strangely called winterizer or fall feeding formula, even though you do them in August and into September. September, of course, is also the time that you do pre-emerge. If you use pre-emerge products on your lawn, that'll be the time to put those out as well. And yes, there are natural sourced materials available. The line that I like is called Preen, but there are others. And if you want to prevent the weeds that are likely to come up in 6 months, that's what you use for it. You use that pre-emerge herbicide. Okay, so those are both things that you might want to think about. Somebody wrote to me a couple of weeks ago and asked me if it was true that caladiums can grow in the sun. She had some that looked okay, but not great. There are varieties of caladiums that are intended to be grown in the sun, and you should look for those. They used to just be ones with very pointed, the hearts were narrower and very pointy compared to the shape of a traditional caladium, but that's not even necessarily the case anymore. So just look for the varieties that you're looking for. Look up the varieties that you have available to purchase. There are some people that have a good sale on caladiums at times online at this time of the year because they don't want to store them. You will have to store them in our part of the world until next spring, but that's not that hard to do. Another thing that's happening at this point in the year, of course, are our friends the surprise lilies. And I did have a surprise in the surprise lilies. Now, to me, the red spiders are hurricane lilies, or they're back-to-school lilies, because that's when they bloom. But taller than that, and also without leaves on it, is a big pink flower, and those are going to be trumpets. It's not a crinum. It's not a hurricane lily. It's a surprise lily, because literally you don't know when it's going to come up. It will come up at the point where that part of the yard has had enough water, or at the point when something else triggers it. You know, sometimes a flash flood will trigger these things. But they are beautiful, they are lovely, and I encourage you to appreciate them. I think it's Lycoris squamigera, but if I'm wrong, somebody will tell me. Okay, okay. Quote today from Sir Richard Branson. I was making out garden to-do lists, and I was reminded of something he said a long time ago. His birthday was just a couple of weeks back, too, by the way. But he said, remember the to-do list, but don't forget the to-be list. And I think in this world that we live in, every decade gets a little bit more important, to figure out to be. It turns out that I'm a cat lover, as you can tell from today's. But I also have great desire to do some things that I think I can do better than somebody else. And in this case, I want to be a lettuce grower. So that's one reason I'm talking to y'all about that. I gave up on growing squash, but I've never quite given up on lettuce. There was one more interesting text this hour about strawberries being eaten from below. We will get to that one when we start the next hour. I've got to look up something and see if I know what that pest is, okay? Now, for those of you who don't know this tune, this is Booker T. Booker T is not only still alive and kicking, I'm going to go see him this fall. How about that? This is Time is Tight. Enjoy. We'll be back.
State Treasurer David McRae has returned more unclaimed money and delivered more college and career...
The trees over your head to the lawn you hate to mow and everything green in between. Garden Mama's here to help you keep on growing. Still the empress of everything green. Here's your horticulture maven, Garden Mama Nellie Neal, on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome in. This is the Garden Mama Show, your place on Saturdays for all the green news, all the questions, some of the answers. I occasionally, somebody says, I hate to ask you this. You've answered that question before. Guess what? You haven't asked it before. I may even have a different answer. You never can tell. I try to be pretty straightforward horticulture, but I am devoted and always have been to the sustainable methods and the products from naturally sourced areas that are sometimes a bit controversial. But I don't think there's anything very controversial about us talking about growing lettuce and having a little bit of fun here and there. Talking about the strawberry plants that I was letting you know came in last hour, but we just didn't quite get to it all. The issue is, here's the deal. The strawberries are covered with a grow net. The idea of that, of course, is to keep the birds off of the fruit later on, but it is also to keep the slugs and snails from being able to get into the plants and tear them up, eat them, or otherwise tear up the planting area. There are, however, some critters that spend a little time in the soil and can come up out of there without you even knowing it. It's also possible that the eggs for the critter that you don't see now were already laid in there. They did the eating and they've already left because they ate everything. So there's several different pieces of this puzzle that we can't actually know the answer to. The question is, will they grow back? Yes, they probably will. I would cut off any really badly damaged areas. I might secure the cover a little bit tighter, perhaps, if that's possible. And yeah, I would probably drench the soil around all of this with some spinosad. If you have a neem product, either one of those would work well, just to try and suppress whatever might be in the soil that's bothering your plants. And I believe that they asked about planting afterwards, or would it be a problem in another bed? The chances are, here's the deal, you never know, but the chances are pretty slim that the same critter would be a problem in a fall bed that was a problem in the summer in a different bed. So that's what I think. That's what I think. These are delightful, beautiful, beautiful tomato. Oh my goodness. Bobby from Monticello, I have to tell you, this is the prettiest tomato I've seen this year. And yes, I would love to get some seed. I will send you a note about how to do that. You got a tuxedo cat and tomatoes in your photographs from me, you're going to get, all kinds of garden mama attention. No question about that. No question. Well, I can tell that we're fitting in already. Jacob, you're getting a text already, so your friends have weighed in, and apparently it's not terrible that I said fighting okra because they didn't cuss at me, so that's good. I want to say good morning to Pontotoc. How y'all doing at the farmers market up there? The Gladneys are there, of course. Harris Family Farm. Wow, Gladney, hey, how you doing? Yeah, and David, I'm not going to count him out either, but Gladney's this is the smartest horticulture person I've met in quite some time. No offense to anybody that I already know. But I just wanted you to know that they are doing, they've got walking onions, and they've got plants for asparagus and horseradish, as well as many other things, including their baked goods. So y'all go see them in Pontotoc. I think they're there all morning, probably till around 11, okay? Okay. Just like any farmer's market, though, the earlier you go, the more likely you are to get what you want, because it can be a very crowded venue. Most of the time, it is. I have, I know I say this because the proof of it turns up to me all the time. We human beings are fairly full of ourselves. We think that it's astounding that crows have learned how to use tools. How do you think they survived all this time? We figured it out. Obviously, they figured it out too. But I have to say, it didn't occur to me that dolphins needed any tools, but here we go. Oceanographic, which is a digital publication to keep you up to date on stuff. It's just wonderful. Always got some good stories about it. But this is really fun. East Coast dolphins using empty shells as hunting tools have now been photographed. And not only that, they teach the calves how to do it, their babies how to do it. We've not seen this before. That doesn't mean they hadn't been doing it for thousands of years. That does not mean that they just figured it out. But what it does mean is that we now know something else that we didn't know before. This is called shelling, and it's a foraging technique that we admit and admire, but we have not published the record of this tool use previously, okay? They may have seen it in the early 2000s, but limited research and limited sightings. It's like, well, that might be one-off. No, it's not one-off, as it turns out. The dolphin chases a fish into a large, empty sea snail shell. See? Repurposing, putting everything to use, then takes the shell to the surface. And this is you got to go look at this video. It shakes it upside down to tip the trapped meat directly in. It's sort of like shooting an oyster. That's what it looks like, on a much bigger scale. But what fun. The only time they've ever talked about this in any publication anywhere was in Shark Bay, Western Australia. So finally the word got over. The social network has brought the information over to the folks there on the East Coast. It's really pretty. It's very cool. Oh, this is lovely. Let's see. That's a big plumeria. You're right. It probably does need a bigger pot. Oh, that's so cool. 71 jars of honey from the one hive in his first year. Now we have to give out a shout. We have to give Pinecone Joe in Kill a big shout out. That's a beautiful plumeria. I wouldn't repot it right now, but certainly this fall I would repot it. I think that's a good idea. It looks like, I have a feeling when you hold on to that stem and slip it out of the pot, it's going to be roots all the way around. So that's the other thing you'll need to be aware of. The plumeria consider their roots to be very precious. So you don't want to cut them up too much, but you will want to slice down the side. And if there are any circling the pot at the bottom, where they've been trying to get out the drain hole, you'd actually want to cut those off, okay? But it's a beautiful plumeria. I wouldn't do anything too little. Yes, David in Oak Grove, they sure are. give them a call. No question. No question. Wow, dolphins are using tools. Next thing you know, we'll be finding out about surprises on Mars. There's so many things we don't know. But in terms of the Mars business, you know, you always have to be careful where you send your stuff. And in our case, we have put rovers there, and indeed, every now and then something happens that, you know, they spend like 10 years just preparing the protocols for the tests and the maps for where this thing is going to drive and what kind of data we would hope to collect and how we might even get something a little bit different. That would be kind of fun. Well, the NASA rover zapped it, ran over a rock on Mars, and oh my goodness. Now these were just, you know, the rover just kind of wandered up there, poked out the laser, said, "What are these?" And indeed found crystalline material that forms sapphires and rubies. Yep, that's right. And there was even a little bit, that's corundum, if you've studied any of those things. We didn't know that was there till now. And it was an accident that we found out. There was also, I love this, a whiff, I don't know what percentage that is, of chromium, which of course is, ruby's my birthstone, so I know this. I probably shouldn't say of course, people probably don't know this. But that chromium is what gives the ruby its red color. So they had no idea. They were very excited. These are plagioclasy rich float rocks. I love that. And the signatures of chromium bearing corundum was really surprising everybody. Oh, Walter, I'm sorry I turned those in already and I did not have yours. I don't think. Wait, I'll go back and look. Yeah, we had lots of folks enjoyed the interview with Jim Long last week, and I'm glad to say that he had a good time too. We all had some fun. Let me see, Walt. I don't know if I got you in there or not. Let me look. Well, of course, there's too much to look at. I'll have to find it later. I apologize. No, you are not. I'll send her a note and see if I can get you on there, Walt, but I didn't get that. Okay. Oh, goodness. Mike, oh, goodness. Poison ivy. Leaves a 3, let it be. Don't touch it. Okay? It's there are a little bit there are several different vines that we run into very commonly in the Deep South. Poison ivy is one of them. The other one that we tend to confuse it with is not so much other poison, you know, the poison oak or those other things. Those are different. Those leaves look like oak leaves. Yeah, we know that. But when we look at Virginia creeper and we look at poison ivy and it's autumn, maybe around Halloween, Thanksgiving, the whole thing looks like red. It's a beautiful color. Unfortunately, the poison ivy is way not good. You need to get rid of it. The Virginia creeper often gets pulled out because we think it's poison ivy. It's not. It's a 5-fingered leaf, and one that you should actually like. Okay. I don't know. I'll do something about that in a minute. We have 2 or 3 conversations going on here on the text line this morning. It's kind of great. Oh, by the way, somebody sent me a wonderful cartoon. Last week was National Sneak Some Zucchini Onto Your Neighbor's Porch Day. And it was a community kitchen, and they were literally like 10 people in there, and more zucchini coming in the door. And they already had a freezer full of zucchini, all the zucchini fritters, all the zucchini bread. They were talking about making, putting in something else to make something to make Christmas cookies. It's like, oh my goodness, yeah, you can end up with a whole lot of zucchini, that is for sure. But I really appreciated the cartoon. It was very funny, and I thank you. How do I kill poison ivy in the beds? Yeah, it's a problem. And I'll tell you why it's a problem. if you get a commercial product, no matter whether it's a natural source product or it's a commercial source product, it's going to, anything the spray gets on is going to be affected, okay? So in a bed, the ideal thing is to paint the leaves of the poison ivy with the product that you're using to control it, whether it's Roundup or a fluorate or a cornmeal, whatever it might be. But if you get, I'll have to tell you this, the brushes that I like for this are the little sponge paint brushes that are about an inch and a half. And I know that you're saying to yourself, well, this patch is this big. If it's bigger and not touching any other plants, of course you can spray it. If it's that big, you may want to get a professional that is not affected by poison ivy to come and pull it out for you, because that's a lot. But for just random little pieces of poison ivy that come up and get going, 2 or 3 inches into your yard or even a foot into the flower bed, you can paint that with the weed killer, and then it will turn brown and die, and you can pull it out. Okay? That's where the azalea. It's in the azaleas. Yeah, that's true, and it will give them a problem. That's for true. One of the thing about poison ivy is, even if you stay away from it, it can choke your plants. So we often talk about how much mistletoe is too much mistletoe in a tree, and it's true that if more than a third of the canopy of the tree is covered up in mistletoe, you've got a problem. The tree's not doing as well as it should, and it may be being compromised by having all that competition. The same is true of poison ivy. The prettiest place for poison ivy, quite frankly, in my opinion, is climbing up a telephone pole, but that's really not a good idea either. So if you have it on growing up something, the traditional method is to go and cut it at ground level and let all that going up the tree or the pole or the side of the house or whatever it is, let that die back. And then you can, when the new growth sprouts at ground level, that's what you treat to control it, to get rid of it. Because the new growth of just about anything is much more susceptible to control products and to control methods, frankly, than is a bigger, older one. Okay? Okay. Yeah, that's Agatha. We have the tuxedo queen here today. She is the tuxedo females are not that common, and she knows it. She appreciates how special she is. Oh my goodness. Let's see now. There are an awful lot of bits and pieces I didn't want to miss today. There's oh yeah, talking about lizards. I can't get off the lizards today. Have you ever had anybody accuse you of having a lizard brain? And that's the whole cold-blooded, sharp, quick thinking, but not necessarily empathetic type brain. It's a different thing. This is where we all get appreciation for them. And that, of course, is that they can regenerate their tails. So if a predator gets the tail, they can drop that tail. It'll wiggle. They'll run off. The predator thinks they got something. Pretty good, huh? Yeah. I'm going to ask the folks in the studio to answer David in Oak Grove, and we'll be right back. Whatever you're doing, whatever you're eating, whatever you're cooking, whatever you're enjoying in your garden, there's a honeybee you should thank for that. And today is International Honeybee Day. About time. We had Bumblebee Day, we had Native Bee Day, we've had everything else already this year. I probably should have declared this one anyway. How do we, what's the deal? Well, honeybees, of course, that we depend on and that we love, but for the most part, are European honeybees, and they actually are not native to here, but aren't we lucky that they decided to make the trip? Honeybees are tiny compared to the other bees, let's face it, but they still have 5 eyes and 6 legs and 4 wings. Now, if you think watching a child learn how to talk is hard, think about trying to learn to fly, to walk, to see, and also, oh yeah, by the way, to be able to go and get nectar, because I got 2 stomachs. One is for food and for digestive purposes, and the other one is the nectar storage organ. something you may or may not have known, is that they have 3 eyes on the top of their head so they can see light, but the 2 that they actually see with in perceptive ways are on the sides of their head. Their wings beat 200 times per second, and that's how come we can hear the buzz, little bitty buzz, but still it's a buzz. 2,000 eggs each day. Who knew? Who knew? I also did not know this, and probably beekeepers all know this, and they're saying to me, why didn't you know this? But I didn't realize that it takes 2 million flowers to make a pound of honey. You know, they have to visit 2 million flowers. I had no idea. This must be why we have so many flowers that bloom in clusters, so we can have enough nectar-producing effort on the part of that flower to keep the honeybees fed. It's pretty good. I don't know how you're going to celebrate, but I hope you will, and why not? Because frankly, we don't live without them. You know, everybody. When we talk about the design of the hive, excuse me, and the way that they're built, there's people every year working on better ways, but the classic ways, because they can be cleaned and can be taken out, and all of those things are just really, really important to understand, you know? Really, really important. Oh, good. That's great. Good morning. Hey, Mark. What's going on? What's going on, Southern Charm?
It's hot. Golly, it's hot.
And listen, I just read a piece. You've also got air quality concerns where you are too in Central Mississippi.
Yeah, and literally you can kind of see it. It's evenings. There's like super hazy. It almost looks like somebody's burning, but it's
well,
not.
it's the Saharan dust. I'm sorry to tell you, but it's Saharan. You know.
It makes for great sunsets. I mean, when sun rises.
Very pretty.
Got to look on the bright side.
That's exactly right. Exactly right.
I wanted to call because, I've been on the road and we've been so busy. And last Saturday when I got home from the studio, I had my quarterly Mississippi State Extension newsletter. And lo and behold, congratulations, Donna.
Da-da-da-da-da.
Ta-da! 35 years.
Donna Balich, my goodness. Thank you, Donna. We don't say that too often, but thank you, Donna Balich. I'm amazed. How do you look so young? How come? Did you go to work when you were 12? I mean, come on. It's all that good hard work, I guess.
But they got some great photos of her, and I know Donna well enough and long enough. She doesn't really like her picture taken, but you can, twist her arm a little bit.
Get her caught, yeah. Well, and there was there's always some good news when somebody retires, and also some bad news because their expertise is going off on another tangent, But I know that she has prepared the staff there to, frankly, tune into the Garden Mama show if they need a question that nobody there can answer. But they've got plenty of agents. They got lots of good folks.
And the agent Doug Carter is going to be taking over in the interim, answering gardening questions. So just because Donna's retired doesn't mean that the Extension Service.
This is Rankin County, and of course we send our shout outs to our friends at the Extension Service all the time. Because, frankly, public service is a very difficult thing to do, and they do it very well. They really do.
They do.
What else you got going on, sir?
There's a road up waiting on some asparagus.
Oh, good.
And I'm kind of waiting for the right weather. I don't want to die in a field, it's going to be hot down there.
And you do need for it needs to be a little bit damper than it is now, too, for that asparagus to have a chance.
Yeah. It looks like we may have some rain coming. Cross your fingers. But, the good thing is it's so far out in the country that it's probably about 10 degrees cooler there than it is.
It is cooler there out at the flower farm. That's true, it is. The other thing is that The other thing is that when we plant asparagus, because when you go to look at the tulip bulbs in the garden center, you see the asparagus down at the bottom row a lot of times, and what you say is, well, should I plant that? What do I do with that? Yes, you should plant it. Has to be a tall row, has to be very well drained soil, and quite frankly, a lot of people right after they plant, especially because we're planting in the late summer and early fall, they'll mulch the whole thing with some hay, just to keep it from getting either too hot or too wet or too dry. Kind of moderate those conditions a little bit. But it's a wonderful crop to grow. I wish we grew more of it. We could have some deliciousness.
Right. So that's kind of what I got going on, trying to keep our own garden alive, and water.
Well, that was great. You put up a beautiful picture. You sent to me a beautiful picture of a bed that was naked grass ready to be planted. Unfortunately, it was too big for my email, and I couldn't edit it down enough. I'm not sure what you took it with, but it's gorgeous. But I wanted to remind people that this is the time. If you have been solarizing this summer, or if you have got a bed that you have just ripped everything out of because you want to do something new for the fall, now is the time to get that thing worked up for the fall. If you wait until you're ready to plant, not only does it make too long of a day, but it's not as good for the soil either. So go ahead and let it mellow.
Well,
make that soil bed and then let it mellow, as they say.
Ours is resting quietly, and I'll get to it when I get to it.
I can see that. That looks good. Well, I'm glad to hear that you're headed out to the flower farm. For those of you who I reminded people last hour, but on Tuesday night, the owner of that flower farm, Donna Yowell, and I will be teaching again cut flower growers of Mississippi. So get in touch with us and come on. We're going to talk about getting harvests all year long. So it'll be fun. Thank you, Mark. I'm glad to hear from you.
Glad to hear from you. We'll talk soon. Have a great day.
Take care now. Thank you much. That, of course, is Mark Peaches Patrick of Southern Charm Garden Design. Y'all go see him on the Facebooks and the other. I think he's on Instagram and I don't know what else. There's too many of those things for me. I do keep up with some of it, but I can't keep up with everything. My goodness, how did I get to 9:36 and I haven't told you already? Goodness gracious. What's the first pie you ever made? Good question. What's the first pie you ever made? Mine was lemon meringue, and today is National Lemon Meringue Pie Day. Now, granted, they did not teach me how to make lemon custard at that time, or lemon souffle, or any of the other things that you might put into this was strictly out of the lemon pudding box, the pie box that you made out of pudding. But it still was a fun thing to learn. I learned how to make meringue, and I learned how to put the meringue in to broil so that it would get those pretty little brown tips on it without melting the entire pie. So all of those things are really important, but it led me to think about the lemon meringue pie that we think about being made from lemon custards, and like basically the stuff that lemon squares are cut up and turned into. That's all been going on since at least the 19th century, probably sooner. And I went back to take a peek, and it turns out that, in fact, they first got a recipe for it in the 17th century. That's the oldest one that we can find, but it did get popularized in 19th century America. I'm not wrong about that. But this whole business, like pomme meringue, which was basically a custard with a meringue on top of it, so it's lemon custard, it has meringue. That's lemon meringue. Guess what? Plenty of time in those earlier centuries. Now, why was that? How come we got all that? Well, because we started bringing in more and more citrus. Citrus is not native to Europe, but once they found it, oh my goodness, how much fun did they have? Citron was the first citrus product brought in to Europe. That's because it is virtually inedible, has very little juice, has lots of pulp, but it's very orange smelling, very citrusy, lemony, orangey smelling. I always find it to be a little bit, it's not quite like we think of things that are crossed. It's not quite that, because it is in the lemon family, but it's just so strong it's different. It's Citrus medica, and that you can tell by that. But at any rate, One of the reasons that we have appreciated it is because people began to cook with it. You can do that lemon zest, you can do the whole thing, without any problem. But also because as soon as it came along, we began to learn about the other things it's related to. Buddha's hand citrus, for example, and the etrog, which is another really big lemon looking thing that we use at Sukkot in the Jewish faith. And one of the things that is really interesting about this is how much it kept on. As soon as we began exploring other parts of the world, because this came through Asia, but when we went across and began looking, as we understand that they were trying to figure out was how to get to Asia from the Atlantic Ocean, they didn't know. But what they found, of course, were an awful lot more citrus. And the citrus, by about the mid-1800s, had become such a big deal that Napoleon built the l'orangerie, which was the first essentially commercial greenhouse in France. And it faced the river, got the sunlight, and they grew citrus there. That was what they were all about. So it's a good, we understand that's how we got conservatories. That's how, thank goodness, they decided they loved lemons and limes so much, so that we could get more and more places to grow them. It's fascinating. Mike has got no figs on his that is a beautiful tree in Taylor, Mississippi. Usually figs fail to bear because it was either pouring down rain when they were trying to bloom and everything just gets knocked off, or because it was too cold and the tips of the branches got pinched, and that also knocks the blooms off. Looks to me like the tree's in good shape. I would consider doing just a little bit of pruning in January and then fertilize it to get it going a little bit more for next year. The only other advice I would give about this fig tree is to get rid of the grass that's growing up to it underneath and give it a wider berth. Give it like 2 or 3 feet that's clear and mulched out from there. The reason for that is because figs are notorious shallow-rooted plants. And if their shallow roots are going out underneath lawn, the lawn's getting the fertilizer that you're giving them as well as the water that you're providing to the tree or that is falling on it. So give it a little bit bigger space around it and do a little pruning next January, fertilize it. I think you'll have a better year next year. We have seen quite a few things this year that got changed, that didn't quite do what we expected them to do. On the other hand, where was I? Oh, that was last week here. Somebody cleaned out around their quince, which usually blooms, February? And it started blooming. So there's no explanation for some of these things. But it's also true that, they don't still grow oranges in l'orangerie. That's where, isn't it? I think that's where Monet first displayed his water lilies paintings, and it became an art museum going along after that. Really very cool. Very, very cool. Yeah, that was a memorial to him, an honor to him in the early 20th century. Wonderful, wonderful. That's really neat. Really very, very cool things. The medieval folks were particularly enamored of all of the citrus that was coming in at that time and that had come in. So that's where the custard comes from. How about that? Let's talk about lemon balm. What do you think? More lemon, this or that? One of the things that I'm hoping that we can get to today, and I trust that we will, there is a surprise on Mars, but there's also more stories about the mushroom that makes you hallucinate little bitty people. Stick around, we'll be back. Steve 2. You still hear it on the radio today. No wonder the man's a music professor. No wonder Steve Cropper wrote the book, the guitar player for Booker T. No wonder he wrote the book on how to create a hit song. How to, next to Leon Russell, I think they have the most record overs or most covers of their songs as anybody, or the most airtime in some cases. Pretty amazing. Speaking of amazing, oh my goodness, Michigan State University got on the phone and called up their friends at the Czech Academy of Sciences, said, look, we need to publish this thing in Molecular Plant, because guess what? We have found something. Darwin wrote about the potential of poisonous plants. If a plant develops, we've talked about this in regard to several plants, if a plant develops its ability to be poisonous to humans or to other predators, then obviously it's got a better chance of lasting, of living a little bit longer. And in this particular case, they worked on wolfsbane and larkspur. So they figured out how these two famously poisonous plants have actual surprising medical potential. It's very exciting stuff. But the idea that they tracked thousands of genes to figure this out, and then took those genes and inserted them into tobacco plants to grow out and see what they could find out, is some of the most miraculous, absolutely just biological stuff I've ever read about. It's really fascinating stuff. This allows those products, those substances, to multiply more quickly. So that's why they put them there. Their hopes of taking that plant that can cause nerve damage and serious issues to give you more help perhaps with pain relief or even with pest control in that particular plant. This goes back to my theory that everything is actually related to everything else. And if we understand how great a plant is that we love to look at, we love to grow it, we have to understand that all those things did not evolve in order to please us, although thankfully they do. But just like anything else, they've got to survive in their own environment. And in order to do that, some plants develop the ability to be poisonous. Joe Pinecone and those beautiful beehives is just lovely. I'm so happy to see a beautiful picture of him harvesting his honey, working the hives over there in the Kill. Nice place, by the way, if you've never been to Kill. Voyager 2 is doing its thing, so now they're going to apply it to Voyager 1. These are space exploration ships that were not supposed to be there anymore. They were supposed to have long since worn out, quit sending data, outlived their usefulness. But because we human beings really do like to tinker with things and we don't like anything to stop being useful, we started in immediately again. And by reducing the numbers of the systems that were on, they were able to determine that the residual heat from something that they probably would have turned off was actually going to keep the other things going. So that little bit of engineering allowed them to save energy on creating heat because they're already creating heat to run this other device. So they're now going to keep this vital equipment operating on both Voyager 1 and 2. That's pretty exciting. That's really good stuff. If you are interested, go to listfirst.com. There is a great list of ancient Earth events that read like science fiction plots. You may decide you want to write a novel at that point, or perhaps a screenplay. It's some fascinating stuff that you don't realize what all goes on in the Earth, until we get in the middle of it, kind of. It's fun stuff. One of the things that people will tell you all the time is if you've grown something and it didn't grow right for you, try it again. And I'm going to tell you that that's a good idea, unless, of course, you can find somebody who will grow that particular plant, vegetable, flower, something even better and all the time. And so I'm not going to tell you not to go to the farmer's market. I think you should. I think we should all grow at least some lettuce, grow some of our own stuff, and go local source for as much as we possibly can on the other levels of things that we're going to eat. I didn't really get a chance to talk about kohlrabi, but I'm sure somebody will send me their complaints about it. I first ate it as a crunchy thing like an apple slices, and it was raw. It was delicious. I like it cooked, but I still pretty much prefer kohlrabi in a salad or in its natural state, just like an apple. You can bite on it. Nice stuff. There's so much going on in this world of ours. Enjoy the candelabras. Enjoy all the green. Please be careful if you are where the air is not good quality. Stay inside, turn on the air conditioner, and by the way, change the filter on the air conditioner. It'll need it pretty soon, too. There's a lot going on in the garden world beyond lettuce, and I look forward to being able to help you get things moving along. Well, one last question. Can you plant beets now in Tupelo? Yes. Just be aware that anything you plant outside now, you're going to have to water more often than you might in another 3 weeks or so. We don't know how it's going to go. But on the other hand, if you're growing a planter box and you're going to keep it watered, sure, put some beets in there. Get some Swiss chard seed too. Those will both do very, very well for you. No reason not to. And no reason, of course, not to keep on growing, as we say. I'm going to be out looking for some more muley grass. I don't want to plant it. I just like to see it. It is the cotton candy looking purpley pink flowered grass that is in bloom in the fall. It's our only native grass really that puts on that big a show, and so I think it deserves our attention, probably even a little bit more than we sometimes are known to give it. There are an awful lot of opportunities for you. Please give yourself that chance. Put this on your calendar. September the 12th in South Haven. The good news for all of you here, if you're just listening to the radio that day, Mark will be here along with the one and only Eddie Smith, but I will be at the North Mississippi Hummingbird Festival with our Birdman. So put that date on your calendar and come see us, okay? It's going to be a lot of fun. Be celebrating birds and an awful lot of other stuff as well. There's one thing about birds, and that is that they want to come to your garden. So if you're a backyard birder, you're going to get a lot of information at the North Mississippi Hummingbird Festival. If you're a vendor and you would like to get involved, get in touch with me, mamaonair@yahoo.com, and I'll put you in touch with them. Okay? North Mississippi NMS, hummingbirdfestival.com. Okay? Okay. I hope that'll get you there. There are, what other varieties of lettuce am I growing? I am going to grow one, what's called a farmer's market mesclun. It's a lot of different mesclun. It's a big variety of seeds within the mesclun, and I will be cutting those as individual leaves to add to my other salad greens. I'm always looking for something a little bit stiffer to go along with all these soft greens, and that's why I will be growing that container Romano from Renee's Garden. Okay? Okay. But you know what? The day has just flown by. As usual, we get here and it's first thing you know, it's 8 o'clock, and the next thing you know, it's 10. I really appreciate y'all taking time. I know you got lots of choices, so putting Garden Mama in your ears really makes me very happy, and I hope makes you happy too. If you are another person looking for some more questions, then by all means, get in touch. See you next week.
The Garden Mama Show is a production of SuperTalk Mississippi Media. Download past episodes at supertalk.fm and contact Garden Mama anytime at mamaonair@yahoo.com. Thanks for choosing The Garden Mama Show.